Good morning, everyone. This is the Town Council Wednesday, March 4th, 2020 regular monthly meeting. If we can all stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2 would be the visitors. Are there any visitors that would like to be recognized? Excellent. On to number 3. At this point, we need the approval of the minutes from the February 19th, 2020 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Number 4 is appointments and resignations. So we have a appointment here for Martin Jaffe for a River Cog Regional Planning Committee alternate seat, which would be replacing Eric Bergman. Martin's currently on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if we can get a motion to appoint him.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So that passes. All right. On to number 5. So discussion about the town council policy for vacated seats. I know we touched on this a little bit in the past. I would like for it to be able to get something on paper so that we have a policy in place. I think some of the sticking points that everybody is kind of, I guess, tied to is that town council has 60 days to appoint somebody to a vacated or resigned seat. Due to the addition of Green Party and getting unaffiliated more involved in this process, would like to come up with something so that everybody has an opportunity to know when the seats are vacated and give them ample opportunity to come forth and submit maybe a resume. Unaffiliates have to submit a cover letter and a resume in order for them to be appointed to seats. If we're comfortable with having that be the same policy, I think one of the things we need to come up with is just a time so that once that seat gets vacated, how much time are we going to give people in order to come forth to replace it? If we have 60 days, I really don't want to wait much more than maybe 2 weeks to give people ample opportunity to submit those names, because then we obviously have to get it onto our agenda. So open it up for discussion on what people feel about that.
I think one of the first issues is how we're communicating to the public about open seats. And
Yep.
then there's also the issue of the Blue Book and the consistency about updating it. So if there was a specific location on the town website or the Blue Book that was downloadable so that people could see when seats become open, and then when seats are then open, then they can pre-plan or potentially send in their interest in advance. Right now, there's still just no consistency of how we're communicating it, and I think that would help resolve a lot of it.
Chris, are you saying that if someone resigns, there would automatically be a time frame, an open window for anybody? Because many, many, many times when we see a D resign, they are replaced that same meeting. Are you saying that there should be a mandatory, say, 30-day window that anyone could apply? Because if it's going from that boom, boom, resign, appointment, then there is no opportunity for a Green or you to come into the mix, and because the R's are notoriously slower at replacing their seats, it's going to wind up with a dominant party across the board. So my vote would be for having a mandatory 30-day waiting period between the resignation and the appointment.
Mr. Chair, I would even say maybe 21 days, but for me, it's not so much the Greens, it's the U's, it's that unaffiliated, which is half of our registered voters in town, how to communicate. I think perhaps upon, and this is for appointed seats, not elected.
Correct.
I think upon resignation, something goes to the town clerk's office, of which, again, conveying it to the public, these seats are available, and allowing them 21 days, 2 weeks to submit a name. I think that would really make us look transparent as what we really are. So.
And again, we still have to follow the minority party rules that are in place. So those are, state statute will follow and dictate how we, that all falls into place. So, the unaffiliated, and the Blue Book in and of itself is a great tool, obviously, because it'll show what's vacated. The issue then becomes not necessarily the Blue Book, it becomes how do we get it out to everybody? So then do we post this on Facebook, or what sort of avenue do we go down? What path do we go down to let everybody know that these seats are vacated?
Well-
Because again, our charter now is, limiting the number of seats that we can hold on these appointed positions. We need to get it out to more people. We need other people out there to get involved.
I think one thing that could be done is get a notice out to the head of each party.
Which I think is done now.
It's already done.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, that should be a good way to get the word out to the Green Party, the Republicans and Democrats. Obviously, it doesn't attract the unaffiliated. That's a different means of
That's the tough one.
communication.
Yeah.
Somehow, through social media, I think, is how we would connect to those people.
Would this be significant enough to use as a news flash maybe once a month, or? Oh, you know what? Maybe if we set it up so that every third Wednesday, where we have an evening meeting, we accept resignations and appointments. Just do it, but just touch on it for one particular meeting every month, and that way people could come
Like that.
and speak or represent, or it'd be an
Or that would-
organized
right.
format.
That would be a way for us to get it out as well, on what seats are vacated, instead of just appointing,
Yeah.
announce
If
what seats are
If it
vacated.
isn't sporadic, if
Good
it's an
idea.
agenda item for that evening meeting every month.
Good idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of what Carol said about at least 30 days. For one reason, it just seems now that, maybe it's my imagination, but like Christine resigns in the morning and I hear about it, and that night I put a letter right in, and bingo, we go from it's like
Yeah.
the resignation's not even wet, and I'm already applying for it. And then everybody else sort of gets chipped out of a chance to get it. So I agree that there has to be,
Waiting.
whatever you decide, I think is an appropriate waiting position. I like Carol's idea also about maybe every the third.
The
Third,
evening meeting
yeah.
that we have every month. The
That
problem,
gives
the
plenty of
biggest issue
time.
is how to get it out to unaffiliated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
how do
agree.
we vet them, and how do we accept them, and how do we let them know they're not?
Well, their vetting
there's no
process is
organization.
Yeah,
Right.
through us.
Vetting, they'd come to us,
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the issue.
So, two concerns I have, and they're sort of long-standing concerns, is one is sometimes there's situations where you really do need an emergency appointment, boards and commissions that have the authority to render decisions, have a very short timeline to do that, and if they don't have a quorum, it becomes a problem. So we would have to have some sort of clause or determination to push forward a recommendation faster than normal for those circumstances, because that would create a scenario where an application could
Can
be
you
automatically
give an example
approved.
of that? Because
So,
I don't
for
recall.
example, many of the land use boards have a requirement where they have 30 to 60 days for an application to be reviewed.
Mhm.
If they do not have a meeting, it does not penalize the applicant so that the application automatically gets approved. So
But
if
how
you
many
do not-
times has there been an occasion where they had a vacancy that needed filling? Well, I can think of one.
I'm just saying you
Um,
need to plan for all contingencies. It has been a scenario in planning and zoning probably once where we did not have the ability to, we really scrambled to get a quorum. Somebody had to come from being sick from their home and get to that meeting. So there
Well-
is the potential. I would just say that that's something we have to plan for. The other concern I have is, say you have multiple people interested in a board or commission, are they going to come to this council and vie for the seat? And that could create a very uncomfortable position for members of the public to be put in, to be sitting in this room and having the council deliberate on whether or not they have the right qualifications. I don't know how you handle that. It's always been a concern, and you don't want to, I think you don't want to put the public in that position, because everybody comes to boards and commissions with the best interest of the town at heart. Granted, some people do not have the background, but that doesn't necessarily mean it should preclude them from being involved in their government.
Well, wouldn't somebody who was interested in the position present some sort of a resume or a, I mean, we see that all the time. substantiation of why they would want the seat and why they are appropriate for the seat. If we had that, and we had that time frame to look at it and discuss it, and if they had shown an interest in that committee or commission or board by attending meetings or something, then you know, it seems to me like there would be a standout candidate. If there were multiple candidates, it seems like there would be a standout candidate for the seat.
And I mean, the issue-
End up in a scenario where there isn't, and that's what my concern is. And again, I don't think you want to put the public in an uncomfortable position where one person feels as though they're being disregarded or dismissed. It's a lot to come before this council and ask to be appointed, and you don't want to put somebody in the position.
On the elected side, I mean, you made planning and zoning as the example of it, but that's an elected board. So the vacated seat there is going to be replaced by their own party.
And if it isn't, you still have the ability to, so say the Democrats, for instance, don't find somebody within that time frame, and that means this
But-
council has to go within the Democratic Party and find somebody who was not endorsed by the Democratic town committees.
But the policy that we're trying to get into effect is for appointed, not elected.
You're not going to address it.
So, no, the elected, I think, solves its own issues, is that if an individual's on that particular commission, you replace it with their own party. That's how it's always been.
Design review is not elected, though.
Correct, but the design review really doesn't have, I mean, what do they vote on?
They vote on moving forward
But-
applications.
Yeah, but they have a say in it, but ultimately, the ultimate say isn't with the design review board. They'll make suggestions to planning and zoning.
Right,
They don't have any
They don't have the authority.
power to yay or nay.
They are a
project.
non-authoritative board.
No, they're not, but they
No.
do, if they do review an application and they don't have a quorum, it's going to be automatically referred to.
And as far as the other issue, they would have to come here because town council is dictated as the avenue that appoints these positions based upon our charter. So they don't have a choice other than to come here. So that's out of our hands, that's the charter. So I know you may feel that they'll feel uncomfortable, but they have to because that's what our charter dictates them to do. We're the board that puts them in place. So they have to come in front of us. So,
Mr. Chair, thank you for doing this, because I don't think you really necessarily had to, but I think it's a great gesture on your part to get third parties and these U's. I think that unaffiliated, really, if you want to get some vibrancy in the democracy of this town, we get those U's out. And again, social media, however we do it, but I do see it even with some of the younger kids that, well, what can I do to help? They don't know.
right.
They don't know. So I think that's a,
What I'll do is I'll try to put together some bullet points of whatever we talked about today, so that the next meeting, maybe we discuss kind of
Can
those
I ask,
options.
is there any way to put the Blue Book on an Excel spreadsheet so that it's active and up to speed and we can glance at it and yay, nay, no, yes?
It is an active
I
policy
mean,
right
I
now.
looked at it last week, the one James Staunton sent me, and I made a list of everything that looked like it was an R candidacy. But, you know, I just never really trust what I see there is accurate.
Well, because it could change at any time, as soon as
Right.
we get another
Right,
resignation. It's
that's
not
what I'm
a-
thinking, you know, a spreadsheet, you just feel like it's so easy to alter and so easy to update that it feels more current.
well, Google Doc, right, with access that only Mary would have, would do just that. We would access it, and it would be the updates that Mary has made, they would be accurate to that minute.
I think it
Who
goes
who
to
does the Blue Book? Is it the town clerk or is Mary?
It's a town clerk.
No?
Well, go ahead.
It's a joint, we both share the file, so we both go in there and update it. She
Okay.
does the
So
resignation.
it is updated daily or after a meeting when we've accepted resignations?
That would be me,
Okay.
yeah,
all right.
and she does the resignations.
Okay.
But, let me just ask a question. When someone resigns, where do they send that letter? To the town clerk or to Mary?
Town clerk.
Town clerk.
That's what I thought. So then you notify Mary of such. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the procedure.
I copied the town chairman, you guys, Mary, and
You do that copy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
I mean,
So all Mary really does is just keep the book up based on the information that you give.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you do.
So I keep it updated based on what you approve, your actions.
It's a little thing, but if in the minutes, when someone resigns, it could say this seat will be open for applicants to fill for the next 30 days, or 28 days if we were on that Wednesday to Wednesday schedule. I don't know, maybe
Well,
somebody.
that would be the policy, so if we put the policy in place, the policy then would go out to the DTC, the RTC, the green, and then somehow the unaffiliated is the big elephant in the room, because how do we get it to them? So I mean, if
Well, a
we
lot of
know,
people do read the minutes,
Yeah.
and if it was just noted on there that this seat is available for submittal of applications for the next 28 days.
right,
And people
What
might,
about that Facebook page that we're
Yeah,
going
I mean,
to up?
yeah,
Great, because I agree, we should get it out.
oh,
to the
definitely.
public.
And like I said before, I don't know whether it's worthy of a news flash or maybe a once-a-month updated news flash kind of thing on the website. It's not woo-hoo news, but it's
We're not
news.
pounding the doors to get these seats, but we'd like them to. We'd like people
Yeah.
to fight out.
Yeah, I don't know how you reach the unaffiliated.
all right. I'll do that for the next meeting then, just put together some bullet points of what we talked about, see if we can kind of come together with something better.
Good.
Okay. On to number 6, which is the status of the Pearson Future Use Committee. At this point, I accept a motion to disband the former Pearson Future Use Committee.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Mike, stepping just for discussion. I think it would be nice if the council did send a thank you to all the members of the Pearson Future Use Committee. They did put a tremendous amount of work in, and I think they deserve that.
Okay.
As with all boards and commissions, but in general, those subcommittees they formed, they disband them.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Are we going to discuss what the plans are for next stage at all? Is that going to be a future meeting?
Is there a new committee going to be formed?
I mean, at this point, there's really not much. We still have to go through everything that kind of exists with the building, the deed restrictions, what's going to fall into place with that. I mean, those are things that are important before we kind of go forward with anything as far as how we can solve that issue, because that is an issue that would need to be addressed and or resolved prior to us kind of coming to a conclusion on what we'd like to do with it. If the deed restrictions exist and then we're not going to get them lifted, then we're directed to a certain path. And then at that point, you know, we kind of have to come to a discussion on what we'll do.
Is there an indication that the Cypre is not moving forward then? The Attorney General's office is comfortable with the concept.
As of 4 weeks ago, our attorney had no update. So it is where it has been.
Anybody else? Okay, on to number 7, Historic Preservation Grant. Everybody has a copy of that. So this is through the Town Clerk's Office, directed to Carl. I would like to request the permission to apply for a Historic Preservation Grant in the amount of $5,500. This will complete the map conversion project. I started with the first grant I received. The map cabinets are old and very hard to get the drawers open. I hope to free up more room in the vault by removing old and outdated map drawers with new hanging map filing system. Total cost of the project is $6,100. The grant is for $5,500. I will be using my historic preservation grant or preservation funds to cover the rest of the project. Thank you, Sharon Uricchio. So at this point, accept a motion to have Carl engage into this grant.
Make
So
that
moved.
motion.
Is there any other further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Bank of America lease agreement authorizing resolution. Everybody has a copy of the resolution as well on this. Whereas in part of its budget process, the town of Clinton has previously authorized the use of lease/purchase financing to fund the replacement of police department vehicles. And whereas equipment leases were codified in the master equipment lease purchase agreement dated October 3rd, 2016 with the Bank of America Public Capital Corp. And whereas the master equipment lease purchase agreement has been amended by adding new schedules of property each time new equipment purchases are financed. And whereas the town desires to finance new police department vehicles, which requires the master equipment lease purchase agreement to be amended to include the schedule of property number 6 for vehicles to be purchased as part of the town budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the town of Clinton hereby authorize and direct the town manager to execute on behalf of the town of Clinton the necessary agreements and forms by and between Bank of America Public Capital Corp. to lease 3 police department vehicles for a total of $157,462 as part of the master equipment lease purchase agreement dated October 3rd, 2016, and schedule of property number 6. Motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
I want to learn a little bit more about the impetus for this, just so before I go on record voting. Carl?
Sure. So Bank of America is looking for some documentation of authorization that the town wants to move forward with using a lease purchase vehicle. In the past, you've submitted minutes, copies of the budget, documents of that nature, which, according to the finance director, has been a significant burden to provide simple documentation. The bank is looking for a resolution which would clean it up and make it an easier document transfer to indicate that this is the desire of the council. I've done other lease purchases like this with Harley Davidson for police motorcycles. It's a 2-year, it's a 2-year deal, but there's similar resolution that their financing arm is looking for somebody to say, this has been authorized. If it falls out of the budget, obviously we don't proceed and don't advance. This is just a document to say that this does have the blessing of the town council to move forward.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And I don't know if you want to just touch on again, so everybody fully understands how this impacts the debt service that we, in the operating budget, we purchased, where we go through the process during the budget session of authorizing the 3 vehicles, and then it takes over to debt. And that was what I had raised before, because there seemed to be a disconnect with Board of Finance during that process.
Yeah, it's in the capital budget is the initial payment, and then all subsequent payments that get you to the maximum amount, which includes the interest, are carried in debt service for the other remaining years. That's the rhythm you've been on, and this sort of continues that practice. The first slug is in capital, the second slug is in debt service.
Were you just using the example, or are we actually going forward on that? We're looking at motorcycles as well?
No, they're not
Oh, I'm
looking
sorry,
at
I didn't
motorcycles.
understand.
It's simply an example
Thank
of
you.
other financing entities looking for similar resolutions of authorization. There is
Thank you for
not
that
going to be
clarification.
anything else happening.
Carl, in the future, will you have recommendations as to handle police car purchases? Is this, I don't know whether this is a policy that you believe in, this lease purchase thing or not, but I look forward to hearing your opinions in the future as to the best way to work with the expense of police cars, because it's, right now, we have a colossal override from year to year of lease payments that are due. So I'm not putting you on the spot now, I'm just saying.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right, right.
Trying to tackle things as I can.
Exactly,
So this
exactly.
is something that really requires
A lot of
very
investigation.
close attention. It's no different than the arrangements you've been doing with paving and bonding that expense. You have an interest expense that you're carrying, so is this a dollar threshold that should be borne in the budget, or is this something that you use this type of approach?
Well, seems-
I think I understand the history and the tactic of why it was used and why it's been used up to this point. I think there needs to be a transition process where you get off of using this and get into a different financing routine than overpaying for the cost of a vehicle by financing.
Right, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Duty, number 9 is the duties of the town historian. Everybody got a copy of the list of duties that was presented to us through Christy Pontillo. Does anybody have any questions on what was presented to us?
Do we need to formalize the term of it then?
That's one of the things, right? I don't know if somebody wants to do something with the term. He indicated, I guess in the past it was a lifetime appointment, but he's indicating that maybe we put a term limit on this. 3 to 5 years, his opinion was 5.
I would like to see a 5-year term. I don't think it's something that has to be reviewed and reassessed on a 3-year basis.
Yes, okay.
I can live with that, too.
Everybody good with that? 5-year?
Should I make a motion?
Yeah. So at this point, we're going to make a motion to accept the duties of as presented of the Clinton Town Historian with a term limit of 5 years.
Mr. Chair, will we get updates, periodic updates from the town historian? Is there any?
We certainly can, have them come in once in a while and, address the
6
council
months
and
or
see
so,
what's
right?
going on. Yeah.
Right.
You have to remember, this was nothing until,
I know.
6 months ago.
I would amend my motion to include a time frame for reports, if you want it to be 6 months or a yearly report. I think a yearly report would be
Yeah, that's
consistent
good.
with the other
Would
boards
that
and
Yeah.
commissions
yearly
that are
report
currently
be
reporting
appropriate for the
right now.
Clinton events thing, or the annual report? I mean, they don't have to come and report to us.
That's why I just said the annual.
Annual.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, got that policy done. All right, senior task force. So everybody got the survey. This obviously is going to be a long conversation, I think. I agree that there needs to be a place where the seniors can congregate, can get together. What we need to discuss as a council is, I guess there's portions that believe there's a need for their own individual space. And I don't know how obtainable that is in our town. I know we have some space available, at certain locations, but does that warrant, that to happen? So my suggestion, we have the survey, is to put together a committee that will give an expansive study on what this is going to be like. So one being, hey, do we just have space here that we can utilize? And if we do utilize that space, what does that look like? If we have to go and they want their own individual space, that's a whole different ballgame, because then you're looking at a director, you're looking at, space, you're looking at maybe updating current space that we have, and how much money is that going to cost to do that? If they're going to serve food, who's going to pay for the food? Who's going to cook the food? So, go ahead, Tim.
In regards to that, on the last page of this document, it's highlighted and it says, "I don't want to see a divide between seniors and the rest of the community." So I don't know if this necessarily has to be something just for them. It could be a community center that they could access, because they're telling us themselves that they don't want to be excluded from the rest of the community. So I don't know if we need to go down the road that this has to be just a senior center, as it could become a community center.
Agreed.
I would agree, and I think the folks who are interested or quote, for a senior center understand and also communicate to the town board of selectmen the value of having a community center, which is a multi-age facility, because of the benefits, and I think the Director of Human Services could probably speak to the benefits of having a multi-age facility and the dynamics that take place there as well.
I think if we're going to open this topic and really explore it, that it would be a great idea to have Aldia Salva come back and give her presentation with the discussion of what the seniors who are actively involved in bringing this to Clinton see as necessary to make a successful senior center. Aldea has examples of what exists in other towns and demonstrates what we provide here. I think before we tackle the idea of a community enterprise, the seniors need to be addressed first. We are so far behind. We are absolutely just Neanderthal compared to what exists in every other town along the shoreline. I was really embarrassed last year when I discovered that. I had no idea that there are not all-day programs, but there are programs and activities and meals and socializing areas. I think it would be great to have Aldea come back. What she has, her idea is optimal. Her ideas are, if we had unlimited funds and resources, what could we do? I think working with her ideas and what we have the capacity to do would be a great starting point for the discussion. I also saw, I see what you said in here, but there was also somewhere in here where it said they would like things designated as just for themselves. There was a quote in here, one of those one-line things, saying that they would prefer to have a designated area that's just for seniors. I don't know whether that means that they would be adverse to having something that's for seniors during the day but used by a younger group at night, or whether they just want a room that they can lock up and say that's ours, and when they're away, they're away. But I think it would be a really good idea to bring her and her group in here, because they are the active seniors in Clinton, and listen to what they say, because there's so many new people on this council.
It might be more beneficial to have them engage more beyond this committee that's being formed, so that they can have a holistic view of everybody who's involved. How are you going to make up the body? Has there been some sort of decision as to who's going to participate on this committee, or is it going to be opened up to the same process that we're talking about? It seems to me that there's a number of areas that need to be covered. Obviously, I don't know whether you want liaisons from other areas, such as the library, making sure you're touching on that resource, the human services, or whether or not you want a completely new committee, and then again, is it going to go through the same process as our, what do you call it, the policy on vacated seats?
So my thinking is that, the starting point of this is what everybody wants and what we can provide. Because there's a big disconnect between what they would like and what we can provide. If they would like their own space, if they would like their own designated area, where is that area? That's the starting point. And if we don't have a space that we can designate directly to them in order for them to do all these things, then you're already on to Plan B. And then Plan A, as far as if they want a designated area, then there's going to, like you said, unlimited money. Well, there's going to be there's going to be a cost associated for them having a senior center. The community centers, those things where if you look on the shoreline, Branford redid theirs, so now they have a big, huge community center, which allows the seniors to go there. A lot of these towns have built these, structures that can allow for that to happen. Do we have that here? Where do we have the ability to do that? And the amount of money that it's going to cost to do that.
And that's what your committee ultimately,
Right.
hopefully,
So-
would make the recommendation. What I'm asking is how we compose this committee. What is, we have to be clear about what their charge is. So the senior task force charge was to basically come up with this report for the town. What is their charge? And then who is going to make up the committee that was proposed?
Yeah, my charge would be, the group of people is saying, well, what do we have out there? Because it's going to be either Plan A or Plan B. It's going to be Plan B where they would like their own separate senior center. Well, where is that going to be? So your charge is going to be find me a space and say, here, we're going to put a senior center right here. It's going to cost us X amount of dollars to renovate this building. It's going to cost us all this money for labor within that building for these seniors. Now, then as a council, then as a town, we make that decision. Is that really, is that money well spent? So then if it's Plan B, then it's where do we put them?
No, I understand that.
I mean-
But I'm just saying
It's just, it's hard, and it's, and again, bringing everybody in, everybody's going to have an opinion, there's no doubt. Human Services, Library, all these different groups will have an opinion on kind of what we do, so how many of those people do we bring into this? I mean, I wanted to open up the discussion because people were asking about it, and they wanted to know what we would do. I don't have that answer. I mean, I'm open to listening to, what people have to say about what we can do, and then try to come to an agreement for everybody. I know Aldia, she's been very vocal on this. We met with her before. Everybody's met with her. She has her opinion. Her opinion as what she would like done, for this to happen. Is that realistic? I don't know.
So perhaps
Can
the
it be
next
made
meeting-
realistic?
Perhaps the next meeting, if we could have something formally written as to the charge.
Yep.
And then the body, what the recommendation of the body
Yep.
is made up of.
Mhm.
Just a little bit of history as well. So once the senior task force had completed its work and we extracted from the report that both communication was an issue, we seem to have appropriate programming, but it goes back to communication, transportation was an issue. And then also you had the subgroup of the senior task force who was interested in a specific facility. We did open up the annex for use. We said during the hours that is not booked on the calendar, it is completely for your use. You can book out the town calendar as much as you want. You can put your programming.
It's still unusable.
Can I just finish, please?
Well, you're going on and on, and I mean, there
Wait,
are
let her
there
just
are
talk. Let her
flaws
finish,
in
please.
your
Just let her
argument.
finish. Let her finish. Let her
There are
finish.
flaws in your.
Let her finish.
Yeah.
So we opened up the annex, we allowed them to use it, but the use did not happen. The only continued use was obviously the meal planning that takes place through the Street Council of Seniors. So if perhaps to get to the end goal, you need to see whether there are the residents in town that are interested in using the facility. If you're not even coming to the facility that exists, that is an opportunity, that will help ultimately establish further down the road. Because do you open a building and wait and say, will they come? I don't know, especially when some of the residents have already broken off and are going to Westbrook, Madison, and over to the facility in Old Saybrook.
The major flaw in your argument is there is no usable space at the annex. I was told recently at one of these meetings that the annex had been cleared out and is now all usable space for the seniors. When I went over for a meeting 2 weeks ago, no, it's exactly the way it was set up. The meal trays are here, there are tables here, everything is exactly the way it was last summer. There is no usable space other than these tables that are set up around that center column. That is not what they are looking for. They are looking for open space where they could put, say, a pool table or a group of chairs or adapt it to their own needs. Nothing has changed over there that makes that space usable. And in speaking with the seniors, they were told they could have it on Thursdays, that there was not an open policy where they could go. So there are discrepancies between what you're saying and what the reality is. And as far as people in Clinton using other resources, that's not what they want. I mean, you look at the numbers here, we have an overwhelming majority, number of people in Clinton over the age of 60. You've got 21 people who go watch movies at the library. That's like the highest response number that you have here. We are not meeting the needs of these people here in Clinton. They don't want to go to Madison. They don't want to go to Guilford. They don't want to go to Westbrook. They want it here. Last week, in the land use office, there was a woman who probably was my age in looking at a new house and asking all these questions. And her final question was, what do you have in the way of a senior center here? And I said, oh, we don't have one. The look on her face, you could tell that that completely changed her attitude about moving to Clinton. The fact that we offer nothing. We have Meals on Wheels here that costs the town $50,000 a year that we contribute to the Estuary Council, and they bring meals over, which I still don't understand, because why don't you just pick them up in Saybrook and deliver them rather than tie up that whole room over there for this activity? There's so many issues in getting things moving and streamlined, and I think the biggest problem that I had after listening to Aldia's presentation is that it's expensive. There's a director, there are food services, and there is a program manager. And at that point, the combined expenses, near as I could figure, totaled about $200,000. if there's some way to rechannel the money that goes to the estuary, because those meals would be provided here and go out from here, and find a way to make it more self-sustaining, we could answer a lot of these needs. And once it's set up, once it's in place, it could be, I know it would be well-used and very popular with that population in Clinton who just doesn't want to drive to Old Saybrook for lunch every day. I would, as far as putting a senior task force together, I would absolutely have Aldea and a couple of her friends on that, because they're the ones who drive up and down the shoreline utilizing these in all these other towns, and they know what the essentials are. And maybe we just start with the essentials, just room and space and a gathering time and area, and move on from there. But in the meantime, we'll be giving them a social outlet that is completely lacking here right now.
Could we tap into the knowledge of our manager and ask, are there any comparable or towns that have senior centers that we may use as a model?
All of them.
Secondly, there must
Everyone
be-
on the shoreline has them.
Well,
Aldea can come in and give her presentation. You
Carol,
won't
let Carol,
believe
let
it.
him let him finish up. So
I'm
we-
sorry.
And then
Yeah.
secondly, I'm sure Carl knows people at state agencies who perhaps could advise us. Is that something to consider?
So creation of a senior center, and I have done a senior center project before. It really has to focus on what the programming is going to be, not so much the physical space. I think if you're going to talk about physical space, it's putting the cart before the horse. It's really a conversation about what are the programs that you're going to offer, and then what's your business plan? So is it going to be something you start off small and then grow over time, or is it you build it and they will come? There are sort of different mentalities. So some communities will just take an idle building, declare it the senior center, very light touch capital, and then the operating budget grows over time as programming grows over time, or you do something a little bit more ambitious. In terms of funding, there are different pots of funds available that could help with capital expense, but you have an issue of what's the mission of the building going to be? Is the mission going to be senior only, senior priority, or community center 50-50? So the senior center type capital dollars are really meant more for senior priority, senior only, not so much for community. So that requires an operational decision of how you're going to allocate space and what's going to be more of the senior space, what's going to be more of the community space, and making sure that seniors have priority in using that space in the after hours. For long-term strategy, you need to be thinking about who you're going to serve, not just today, but further down the road. The folks that are seniors now, the folks that are the near seniors. What's the programming dynamic here in town? Is it something that involves more supportive aging in place? Is it caregiver support? Is it wellness? There's more to a senior center than simply playing cards and socializing around a common lunch. There's an awful lot of different programs to be offered. The $200,000 operating budget is not far off, because there are free vendors that can come in to provide programming, but more and more you're paying somebody to come in to provide additional programs.
Could, when we put together the charge, I guess next meeting we'll look at that, maybe the advice of Carl to put those specific concerns in the charge of the task force?
Chris, question for you. To me, a building like Pearson, it's got a kitchen. On the first floor, there's large rooms that are currently not being used. I mean, that to me would be the type of facility that would, I think, apply to a senior community center. Is that a possibility, or is that really not available through Pearson?
Right. I mean, I think it should be discussed. Should we then do something like that and allocate them to that building, then it kind of limits the rest of that building to what we do. Because then at that point, are we keeping the building or are we selling the building? You know, what's this? That's why kind of figuring out what we'll do with Pearson will be a big determination on how we can proceed with that building. You know, if we're going to keep it, if town wants to keep it, if that's what, you know, what it all comes to, then we can utilize it for certain things. You know, should the recommendation be that we, you know, it doesn't make sense, we need to get rid of the building, which I don't know, I mean, we haven't really gotten to that place yet. But certainly is an option to discuss. Yeah.
The current utilization of the building for Dover is challenging because of the handicap accessibility of it. That was one of the discussions that took place with the senior task force as well.
So, anybody else? I dare ask. Okay, all right, so at this point, we'll recircle this, revisit this, come up with some bullet points as to what we want this task force to look at. Chairman's report, real quick, I know we got a lot of other things to do. I just wanted to acknowledge and to make people aware of the fact that I guess there was 2 promotions that came through with the police department. Spencer Mangs and Chris Barone both were promoted and will be honored at an event tomorrow evening, I guess right here in the green room, or the auditorium, I think, is where they're bringing it. So if anybody's available, they'd like to go to that, please feel free. We'll move right on to the chairman's report. I mean, the town manager's report.
Since you've got 4 items, the report's essentially is submitted. I would provide and call your attention to household hazardous waste, which is one of the services that the Council of Governments offers. This is their new brochure for the upcoming year. The first satellite collection is in Clinton on March 28th. So the desire is to get the word out, make sure that people are coming and disposing of their household hazardous waste. We'll be connecting to the COG's Facebook page that supports the education on what's going on in Clinton at the end of this month, and making this brochure available on the website. Since they have a new vendor, the vendor's looking for certain minimums to be delivered, so the goal is to make sure that we're getting as much waste diverted as possible at these hazardous waste collection satellites and the standing facility up in Essex. That's it.
Thank you. Any comments? All right, on to number 13, which is Town Council, the committee liaison reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Eric?
Chair, you tasked me with quite a duty.
There you go.
Covering these late-night planning and zoning.
They'll be over soon, don't
meetings.
worry.
Honestly, I'm just going to give a very brief overview because I could probably write about an hour about some of the things that have been going on with that and within the wetlands. But planning and zoning, very briefly, the SE CAM 190024, the Ice Cream Cafe and Mini Golf Building. There was some discussion about a Clinton Land Trust's involvement, who would operate what, and that the intervener from Madison was there, and he was, I wouldn't say welcome, but he made his points. And that was the public hearing was closed. The Indian River Landing, which is the project at the old high school, very impressive presentation. It was cleared through inland wetlands. And I believe both of those public hearings were closed. They made very compelling arguments for what and why they want to do this. And then the last thing was the brewery was withdrawn. I don't know if you heard the news of that. Their application for that. Not to say that they won't resubmit it. And the condominiums, that was continued to the next they seem to be missing a lot of documents. Inland wetlands, the equestrian center, they submitted and were approved by the health district. They did, it will be approved upon DTC, that's not the Democrats, that's the engineering firm, DTC review, and addendum with a list of conditions. They did offer an invitation to our town manager to, when you have a chance, I know you're very busy, Carl, to say hello and check in with them. And I would like to continue this to the next meeting where I could probably give a more comprehensive report. But it is a lot, and I thank you for appointing me as liaison.
Anybody else? Okay. We will move to number 14, make a motion to go into executive session pending claims CGS 1-206B, and to invite Jerry Deese, Peter Chow, Mary, and Carl.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
This is so interesting.
Okay, we're back from executive session, and we will move on to number 15, which is settle agreement and mutual release. So at this point, we'll look for a motion to accept the settlement agreement and mutual release.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Second, Christine. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'll abstain only because I was a member of that committee.
Okay. All right, all good? Good. All right. Number 16 is adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Aye, aye, aye.
You, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Peter.